Okay. Oh, okay. And where's my audio? Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. We've got a few more people that we're expecting, and of course, I don't see our presenter on yet, but give her a few more minutes and we'll get started. Thank you. Good morning, Nikki. Thank you for joining us. I have
Absolutely.
made you a co-host, so if you have something to share, you should be able to do that with no problem.
Perfect. Give it just a second. I had to reboot my server this morning, so it's given me a little bit of fuss, but we will get over that. Give me just a minute to make
Oh,
sure that happens. How is everybody this morning?
Try not to get blown away by the wind.
I know, I kind of heard you had a lot of that going on. So, as much as I wanted to be in your area, unfortunately, or fortunately, I guess, the weather showed its hand before I got on an airplane, and that was maybe a good thing.
where are you coming from, Nikki?
I'm in North Carolina.
Oh, okay. I thought I heard a little bit of southern accent there.
Yeah, well, and funny, I'm from upstate New York. I'm from outside of like Buffalo, Adirondack, like Arundequite. Like I've got kind of family all through Syracuse and Buffalo and all that.
Oh,
That's where
wow.
I was born and raised. Yep. Yep. So let me refresh the global dashboard, make sure that nothing went down when I rebooted. So I miss the snow ultimately when I'm not there. So I'll get out there, and everybody that's joining today, FYI, we're going to reschedule my live. So we didn't lose out on that. We'll absolutely get back out there. This just made more sense. Hopefully you're warm in your living rooms. And I'm not stuck in an airport somewhere trying to get home tonight. And we're all better for it. So may I ask how many people are on the session? 14, is that what we've got? Is that what we intended? Are we about where we need to be?
Yeah, we've got
Okay,
Bev and myself is in that 14, of course.
okay,
And I'm looking right now to see who all we're missing.
okay.
But I ended up sending it out to our entire membership since we were doing it Zoom. And so we may have some people on here that we weren't originally, but it looks like we've got the most of everybody that had signed up. So I will hand it over to
Perfection.
you. We are recording the session. And because a few people have asked for the recording because they weren't able to switch from this afternoon or what have you. So,
Awesome, awesome. All right, and we will confirm that everybody can see my screen.
yes.
Okay. Alrighty. You are seeing the Flex dashboard or the same way you go in and log in every day. And for those of you that don't know who I am, again, I'm Nikki Morgan and I am your sales representative as well as the person that helped put together this account and continues to bring you new and enhanced or enhancements based on the needs of the MLS. So I enjoy getting on with you and talking about everything we're doing and making sure that everybody's taking full advantage of everything that's offered. Now, one of the reasons why we always and continuously are setting up these classes is that I find when looking at usage reports, you folks are definitely using the system, but there are times that I see that maybe you're not getting into all spots or crevices or functionality. So today it's really an hour and 45 minutes. Is a short period of time when it comes to talking about all the things that CRS data does, but it gives me an opportunity to kind of open your eyes to some things that maybe you haven't seen or haven't experienced. And then it also gives me a chance to show you where you can get support, not only from me, but from our Rockstar team of support personnel in the Knoxville, Tennessee area, as well as an at your pace, all inclusive on the system, needs assistant, as well as help tools. So if you ever find yourself working within the system and getting slightly confused or wondering where you go next, you can easily get that self-help, if you will, because I'm going to be honest, the hour and 45 minutes, again, like I said, is a short amount of time for as much information as I could share. So don't frantically feel like you have to take notes, because I'm going to show you where my notes are captured inside of a help tutorial and or guides throughout the system. So just really sit back and enjoy. Put your questions in chat, and we'll do our best to take a look at those and answer those. Sometimes during the session, more often than not, it makes more sense to use it as a review at the end, but I'll make that determination based on what we see. And for the moderators that are joining us from the MLS, If you see something that you think it makes sense to stop me and say, wait a minute, nobody saw how you got there, please repeat that. I'm happy to just naturally have you ask those questions as well. So chat for members, and then again, the MLS staff, if you see something that I should stop and take note of before there's any additional confusion, then please feel free to do that. Again, I'm logged into Flex just like you would be. And there are several different ways that you're going to get into here. So as we're looking, I'm going to go ahead and tell you, I don't know whether this is just me or whether it's the way it is that I can't directly go to CRS from this link, but nevertheless, CRS is integrated within Flex. So for me, I'm going to go into the Flex shortcut and I'm going to tap on the tool Flex MLS to begin my journey this morning. Now, of course, what you see on the screen there is just Flex asking me to relog in because I have been in and out of Flex for days on end. And at this point, it will get me logged back in. All right, here we go once again. Tapping on Flex MLS now that it has reassessed my login, and telling the system that I'm going to read this message later. So if that doesn't give you a true perspective on the fact that I'm logged in just like you are, that message will have done that. Now, let's go ahead and start with where we find CRS data inside of Flex, because there's a couple of different ways if you didn't know it. For those that may have never used CRS, welcome, and let's get to it. I can tap on the menu item for, and it is going to open up just what we expect, a menu item of items that are integrated with or accessible to you from Flex MLS. As I scroll down, I will see that there's an entire section related to taxes. Now, just to explain this as easily as I know how to explain it, is that when you go to a mall or to a store that has multiple doors that enter into a space that may have several different departments or different stores within the mall, you want to go in and or park closest to what you need to do when you get in there. Not all of us pull up to a mall and want to spend the day just kind of walking and moseying and looking through the windows at all the stores. Most of the time, we are there to do something and get it done and possibly have a little time to do it. That's kind of what these individual quick links are. They allow you, looks like we've got a couple of people that are ringing a bell. I'm assuming that someone else has letting people in. It looks like there may be some people sitting in a waiting room, if you will, but I will assume that you guys are grabbing them. So with those taxes down the left-hand panel, these are very, very easy ways to get into CRS data to do. All right. So keep that in mind. Now, once you get into, say, for instance, the profiles and settings section, you still have access to everything else in the candy store that we are giving you access to. So just because you're entering into that section doesn't mean you can't do all kinds of other things that maybe you didn't plan on doing or it wasn't your intention. But nevertheless, know that you can absolutely enter into one space and get into all spaces, okay? The other thing we want to talk about is what you know to be the icon that from being with Flex, you know all about. You hover over an item and click that star, and it sets it up as being a favorite, if you will. When it's marked as a favorite, it does go up across the top of your screen as a quick menu ribbon item. Instead of opening up the menu, now you have those items across the top of the screen that you call out as being the most frequently visited items within Flex's menu, and you don't want to have to open it up and find it each time. All right. The next thing we want to talk about is that for most of you, When you go into that menu, you're going to see an opportunity to add a listing. Now, because I'm not a real estate professional, they don't allow me to add listings, which is not a bad idea. I don't need to be adding listings in your MLS. What I need to be doing is telling you that if you are interested in saving time and preventing errors, then you should, in fact, indeed, use CRS data to auto-populate those listings. What that'll do is it'll populate the data into your data input form, whatever you refer to that as, into your listing to give it its legs. So if it's asking for, and of course it does, it asks for an address, a parcel ID, etc., then you in fact are able to populate that using tax or auto populate it. So just pretty much auto fill those items that are in my system that you need to put into your listing. And it cuts down on errors. Frankly, that's really the big deal there. Okay. So take that into consideration the next time you add a listing. The last way we're going to talk about from this screen that you can take advantage of CRS data is through the hot sheet on the far right-hand corner. This gives you access, and you know all about it because it wasn't born through me. It is and always has been part of your Flex MLS, and it is and will always be part of all MLSs. We want to be able to see very quickly what new listings went on the market since the last time we were in the system. Maybe we want to look at all the properties that have had a recent price change, etc., since we were in the system. Okay. So pretty simple. And this gives you the chance to do things like, let me tap on price change. I took some people out to see houses earlier in the week, and things were slightly higher than they expected for some of the areas that they lived in or were looking in, whether they wanted to be in Albany or whether they wanted to be in Queensbury, wherever that is. We're watching and hoping that a property that they looked at has been reduced to allow them to qualify for it and it to check all the boxes of what they're looking for. So if you find one of those on this list, the great CRS and Flex integrated is that if I'm looking at property number 8 in Plattsburgh, and it's been reduced from, this one says the property's been reduced, but it says 294.9, and the original price was 294.9. I don't see that as being a reduction. Maybe there's a typographical error there, but nevertheless, so let's look at number 7. It was 259.9. Now it's down to 249.9. And although a slight change, sometimes the smallest of changes opens up a big, wonderful, beautiful, celebratory moment where your client now does fit within the bracket of this home might be perfect for them. Then I can tap on that active ID. And when I do, it does in fact open up more information that Flex has to provide in regards to the private detail report for this residential active listing. The bonus here is that you're reading all the information that's been entered from that listing agent, and it's put together in a very easy to view way. And then if you'll notice in the far right-hand corner, this is my logo, if you didn't know it already. And that gives me a chance to put together a package of information for my client. If I hadn't already done it, that gives me a single click to open up and share, look at and share the property report for this particular property. Now, this is all set up based on available space. So if I tap the more button, I may find more things that I can do for you, or you may click more and find more things that I'm doing for you in regards to this quick review of this property. This will give you a chance to do a quick CMA report. so that in preparation for calling your client, you can send them an email with a property report, with the detail on this property, with a CMA report. You could also use my CRS parcel map, which would put the property on a map, and it would give you a visual aid of how close it is or how far away from a point of interest. Items that your client obviously is using to identify homes that work for them. Is it close enough to the school we want our children to go to? Is it a good distance from our place of employment so that we can drop children off and get to work on time and not struggle with traffic and stay far enough away from the airport? That also gives you one more key, and that gives you the demographics report. All of these reports are in an effort to gather facts, the ones that people most often collect when they're passing on information to a prospective buyer that consumer will appreciate. All right. So keep that all in mind. More of CRS data without having to go into CRS data from here, then it would open up the CMA report for this property versus going to CRS and searching for the property and then getting to the demographics or to the CMA. I know there's been some confusion because this says CMA, but almost directly above, you have another button that says CMA. Keep in mind that Flex also has a great CMA. I have nothing negative to say about their CMA, but I will tell you that choice is everything in this industry. We all know that we all work slightly different from one another. We have different likes and dislikes. And so options really are what this is all about. We want options so that we can find the best suitable solution for each of us. And, if we were all the same, we'd be quite boring. So knowing that Nikki Morgan likes to do things a bit differently than Bev or anyone else on this call, it's all about you've got your own personal way for doing business. And who am I to tell you what way? But it's better to say, okay, I've got you, and these are all the ways you can do or have access to a service that creates a CMA. This is no different. Flex takes care of business. CRS does it a little differently, and I'll show you that big difference when we get there. And I think it will open your eyes to why having Flex as well as having CRS data to both be ready, willing, and able to do a CMA isn't a bad idea. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and jump right in. I'm going to tap on the CRS Simple Search tab that I created for myself on the top of this form. Now, what I'm going to tell you is the Simple Search and the home screen are one and the same. Although, super important to point this out, if you're new or if you haven't ever played with your end user customizations, today you'll learn that Simple Search doesn't have to be your home screen. If you like a map search and you're on a map search, doing and using a map search 90% of the time, I'll show you how to change your home screen from the Simple Search screen and create your home screen within the map search environment. So there are options that you may or may not already have discovered on your own. It's been a long time since I've seen you folks, so I hope that this is something that you haven't seen before and that I can help you out, or that you're using and you're excited that other people are going to get to realize that not everybody's home screen has to be the same. So I'm going to tap on Simple Search, and what you're going to see is that my home screen is set up by default to be the Simple Search screen. And that's where everybody started. I had to have a starting point for everybody. So everybody was created quite equal, and everybody's system looked identical when we started. For long, if you today just find out that there's customization that you knew nothing about. Far left-hand corner, there's a help button. excuse me, a home button. There is a home button on the far left-hand corner and a help button on the far right-hand corner. I think I may have twisted and crossed my arms that time. Home button on the left, help button on the right. Keep that in mind. You will find that to be true on every page inside of CRS data, giving you a way to get back to the home screen, whatever that may be for you quickly, and a way for you always to get help even more quickly with the tab that says help on the right. Now, we'll also see that there is a setting tab inside of the two of those buttons, and that settings tab is where your end user customizations live. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap that settings tab. I won't spend a lot of time here because it's going to take you a little time to decide what types of customizations you want or need to do. It's not something that we make quick decisions on, or maybe we do if we just know, but it's something that will always be an option for you to change and then change your mind and work it out and decide you want something different next week, next month. The one thing that you see right when I open this up is that there's a branding button, and it's the first set of customization preferences that we offer you. And it does allow you to continuously upload a photo. And the photo can be this year's headshot and this year's personal note or mission statement. It could just be your business card you upload. Whatever you want me to place on the tops of all of the documents, all the information you're providing to consumers can, in fact, be placed at the top of your reports out of CRS data by simply following the branding instructions. Remember, there are changes in what we do and how we're contacted. You may be at the same firm you've always been in, but you like to keep your photo fresh or your message or mission statement. What does 2025 look like for you? Maybe the words this year are, let's have a conversation about why it's the best year to buy a house. Welcome 2025 and home ownership opportunities, whatever that is. Change it every time that you create a report for someone. It's just that easy, okay? Now, I'm going to tap on the Help tab to show you how the Help tab is going to finish exactly where I'm going with this. So I'm going to tap on Help. And because I was on the Settings tab, that Help tab gives me everything I need to know about configuring my product settings. So instead of me going through each one of those buttons, knowing that we have limited time and knowing that you may not be ready to make all of those decisions, I'm going to talk about them throughout the morning, just pointing out that you can do customizations in a particular session or section, but reminding you when you're ready to do that, tap on the settings tab and then tap the help button, and the help button will do or fill in the blanks on why would I want to enter an email address? What does it mean when you use the word default counties? Does it mean I lose all the other counties I have access to just because I don't use them frequently? I may find myself selling a house in that county, just not today or tomorrow, maybe next year, next month, in the next 5 years. Default counties, what does that mean? What are your most frequently searched or used counties? And instead of having to search for them, let me put them in there as your most recently searched or used counties, and then let you modify, remove, and replace based on a new opportunity in a new county you might fall upon. Search settings, we're going to go through all three. We're going to do a little simple searching and learn all about how our results are returned. And then I'm going to show you the differences using map search and advanced search. We won't need to repeat the how do the results appear. We'll look at them. I'll point out the one or two differences and we're off and moving through. At the end of today, you might decide you've been using or leaving your home screen as simple when you often are using a map search, and you just discovered that you can keep access to advanced and simple, but just put your map search first when you come into CRS data. So because that's your preferred search process. Okay. So it is up to you. And that's something that you can maintain. You're not losing anything. You're just putting it in a better order that suits your business process. All right. Just like those that we just talked about, this system or the help tab rolls through everything that I may not, that I might talk about. And you're like, all right, I want to know more about that. Tap settings, tap help, and learn more about that. Okay. All right. So that help tab, that's the first introduction to how help works, but not the last. Now, as we're things tab, I know I can do one of two things. I can go back to previous page, or if I'm not sure where I came here from, I could go to the home button. Either one does the job. All right. The next thing I want to talk about is that the MLS Tax Suite is centered over top of this list of items that you can now do. And the gold bar is underlining the word property search. That tells me where I'm at. It looks like I am set up and in a position to begin a property search. And that is absolutely positively correct. I've got 4 counties in here. Now, if I'd have pointed it out a minute ago, you would have seen that I don't have any counties set up as my default. What I do have is a situation where the system gets sticky and starts to, if I haven't already told the system where I work most frequently, it is kind of paying attention. It's telling me that it sees me in these counties most frequently. And because of that, it's opening up my system with those 4 counties already open, ready for me to work in. And then, in fact, if I decide that I want to work within a different county, all I have to do is tap that section and it'll tell me, hey, Nikki, you've already got 4 counties selected, and that's all you can have at one time. And I'm okay with that. But if I wanted to add a different county, I could simply tap the X and remove one, and then tap down and add one. Does somebody want to put in the chat what counties you think are your main counties, maybe 2 or 3 around you folks that you think? Now, somebody from the MLS staff, feel free to do that. What do you think your top 2 or top 3 counties are? And I'll watch for that chat to come in. And what I'll do is I'll show you exactly what it's like to choose your own counties. So I've got Glenn saying Warren County, and we can do that. Anybody else have a couple of more? And Washington and Saratoga. All right, so let's grab a few of these. So Essex, Saratoga, Washington, and Warren. Let's do that. So I'm going to get rid of, now I've got samples of data and it's not in those counties, but we're going to wing it and do that. So we're going to say Warren County. We're going to say Saratoga County and Essex County, as well as Washington. Notice it's very, very simple to just pull out and grab the counties that we need. And now if I spend too much time here today, these counties will become sticky for me and I won't have to choose them anymore. They'll just be in there and then I can swap them out if I feel the need. It just saves time. I don't know about you, but anything that saves me a little time is not a bad thing. All right. So now what we're going to do is we're going to do a simple search. So simply considering that I'm from nowhere, North Carolina, and know very little about anything other than if I want to see snow, I'm probably going to see it visiting you. That's about all I know. Okay. So, but I'm going to go in here and I'm going to type the word lake. And with Nikki from nowhere, North Carolina, I found several owners that start with the word lake. And I found plenty of street addresses that start with the word lake. I can also take and put a percentage sign in front of the word lake. And now I'm getting more of the same, but instead of having them start with lake, now they contain the letters L-A-K-E. Somewhere in that name, I'll find the letters L-A-K-E. So here's your tip or trick if you didn't remember this from last time. Hover and stall over any question mark within the system to use the wildcard to change variations of the term, especially like if you're not sure how to spell it. If you're not sure whether it's lake shore or shore lake, whether it's one word or two words, using that percentage sign in front of what you're typing will help the system, and it won't just look for shore lake, it will look for lake shore. It will look for variations of what you put in there, not just I'm looking for things that start with the word lake or the letters L-A-K-E. So it does give you a little bit of just variations that you wouldn't have had before. Okay. Now, if we want to go in there and put Smith, same thing goes. I've got owners, I've got streets. Okay. Now I could tap on an owner, I could tap on a street, and I could get all properties recorded on the street I tap on or the owner name I tap on. And that would be exclusive for the counties that are in that box. All right. So that's what it's going to give me. Now, if I wanted to add a percent sign in front of Smith, I might get Blacksmith versus just Smith Drive, right? Now, if I don't see what I'm looking for, I could always tap on View More and ask the system to show me more of what they've got here. And it's going to continue to show me more and more based on how much information I provide. So if I go in and say percent sign Smith and put a space and then put, I don't know, another S, if it doesn't find what I'm looking for, but notice what it did there. It said variations of anything with the word Smith, and now I've put a space and an S. So it removed anything that did not have a particular S after the word Smith. Okay, so keep that in mind. Now I could still choose a street and see all the properties recorded on one of these streets, or I could tap on Submit to see all properties on all of these streets, or I could choose to return to full options to look back and make sure that I'm doing what I think I need to do. Remember, view more, choose, or click submit and see all. I'm going to go in and see all. This gives me 358 properties that are on those variations of percent sign plus Smith, which means anything that contains a street name that has the letters S-M-I-T-H in that order, but not necessarily starts with. Okay. Now, let's just talk about this list. The list of properties, you're always going to talk about results, and results will always, no matter how you do your search, show you the total number of properties that I found while doing my search. All right, so I found 358 properties that qualify based on my search. I also know that I'm going to be able to tell which ones are active, sold, pending, expired, and withdrawn, because not only will it have an icon, but we'll know what that icon means because the legend's at the top of the screen. Okay. Obviously, green is always meant go. Go is considerable familiar or similar to the word active. So again, we've always in the real estate world realized that red meant sold and green was for sale. And so we've used not only the colors that we're used to using, but the shapes to go along with it. Okay. If I don't know what I want to do with these results yet, but I know I need to keep up with them or keep them, I can click save results, and then I can share them or go back and decide what I want to do with them at a later date. Okay. So by clicking save at this point, I have saved them so that I can continue to use them. I just don't have time to do anything with them currently now. All right. So saving these gives you an option to maintain the list, but not have to dedicate doing anything with that list currently. Down the left-hand panel, you're able to modify your results, meaning we used a street plus the percentage sign to tell the system that we wanted to look for anything that had the word Smith or the letters SMITH in the name of the street. All right. And we got that. It gave it to us. I have no complaints. I can continue to modify by using any of those other modification or qualification refinement tools by looking at the modify results pane down the left-hand panel. You'll notice as we get a bit further in that your results can be modified by more categories when we get to map search and advanced search, because there are just more ways to search or filter your properties. As always, when looking at a map and CRS data, you can hover and you can stall, and that gives you additional snippets of data based on the property you're looking at. All right. So remember, hovering and stalling gives you more opportunity to discover more information about that property. In a little while, we're going to talk a little bit about the toolbar, or a little more about the toolbar. We'll actually use it in a little while, but we know plus and minus means pan in and out. We'll also come to recognize that the small gear tells me that I can change my view from road to aerial on demand. And the reason why I say that the way I say it is because when looking at a map, you're going to have a default view. Remember, those end user customizations we talked about in the beginning, in there, you'll find a setting for your map view, and it will have a little radio button indicating what your map view is set up as. If you looked at my setup, mine would say that I chose at some point, or chose not to change it, because the by default is the road view. So you can go back to that settings tab and you can change your view from road to aerial by default, change it from the by default setting into something that serves you better. And then on demand, you can come to the map and tell it, for this moment, I want to see the aerial. So you have a by default setting, and then anytime you have a by default setting, you will also have an on demand reverse of that. So road view is my by default setting. I've selected it, and now I'm going to have the aerial be my on demand, and I can demand to see it. And that's what happens here. So you decide, what do you use most? What do you swap back and forth to and from? Create what makes sense for you. Don't take what I've given you if it's not working for you. Take what you have available to you that works best for you. This small button, I struggle after 13 years of doing this on what to call this button. I'll name things, anything that I come up with, but this one just hasn't ever, a locator button, but I don't love it. You span yourself or spin across the map and move about. And if you get lost somewhere, here's my hometown, Rochester, tap, it will center you back over the map where you started. So, we could call this, Wizard of Oz, and say that you tap 3 times or tap once, it takes you back to your subject property. Nevertheless, if you come up with a great name for that button, I'd love to hear it. I'd love to have something different from everybody else in the whole world. But that locator button for now is what locates or relocates you or recenters you back where you started. I have a tool that gives you a magnifying glass option. The magnifying glass option merely means that you want to look deeper than what you're seeing. So you want to see more, like a good pair of spectacles or glasses or readers. So I would draw a polygon, a rectangle, a radius, or freehand over an area that I wanted to see more of. I wanted to see more than what just meets the eye. So I want to zoom in and use that magnifying glass to see more over a certain designated area. That's what that button is. Of course, we're too far out to do that. If I try to draw a polygon, it's going to tell me like all you did was do barely a dot and connect the dots, and you've got, 700 square miles or whatever. And it's going to tell you you're too far out. Your shape is too big when by the looks of it, it's so small, but it covers so much area that it really wants you to pan in before you do those shapes. So just keep that in mind. The ruler or the measuring tape, whatever you want to call it, kind of the same situation. You'd want to be panned in quite a bit to start measuring parcel lines, to start dropping a lat long or a distance, measuring a distance or an area. You need to be much closer in. So just keep that in mind that those tools are available to you, and you can even tap to view a larger map. So you're doing it on a larger map. But ultimately, you still need to be panned in. It's just the best practice. Okay. As I scroll down just a little bit, my map is open because I set up to have the map view be by default open when I do a simple search. I will tell you that most people just still have their by default settings, which only gives you an action that allows you to open the map. So yours, if you've never changed it, looks like this, giving you an on-demand request to open the map versus having it open and on-demand closing it. Let me show you where I did that. I went up to settings. I went to map versus list view. And I told the system that I wanted a map view. So if you go into yours and your map is small in a simple search and just you have to ask for it, yours has the radio button list view highlighted. So you are buttoned up like this with a road view as the option for how you want the map to look when you open it. Where mine has the map view with the way I want the map to look, which is the road. So I can change this, and so can you. Right now, my list view only is my on demand. While I'm looking at the map, I can choose to close it and just have the list view on demand. Right now, if yours is opposite, your map view has to be requested as an on demand, and it opens very, very small. So remember, those are ways that you can customize your system. And instead of opening it each time, you can close it. Okay? Scrolling down to the actual results, looking at the numbers on the map, knowing a few things. If I'm looking for a particular property, I can tap on the number and it zooms me in and allows the map to show me exactly where that property is. Okay. So it's showing me, I don't know why it's grabbing 14, and I'll report that as why are you showing me 14 when I asked you for 15? I'm going to report that. And those items were not perfect. So if you see something like that, no matter what that is, let us know so that we can find out why in the world it's taking me to 14 when I asked it to take me to 15. So let's do the opposite. Let's tap on 14. It takes me to 14. Let's tap on 15 and see. It may just be where I move the map around a little bit, honestly. So maybe me and not the system. But nevertheless, if you find something like that, let us know. Sometimes it's a very, very simple fix. Sometimes we need to look a bit deeper, but that's why you use CRS data so that you have someone to call. Something comes up and it's not acting as if you expected and it's not doing for you what you expected to do. We're here. Let us know. Going to the bottom of the screen, so we know we can tap on the number and have it zoom us in on the map. We also know that we can check boxes and keep those or remove those. So I'm going to remove those 4 properties. And it goes ahead and moves 4 more up from the list because it's now showing just the first 15 with several other pages. Now I can go in and say, I want to view more than 15 and view 30, and still having the opportunity to go through and tap and have the system show me where those properties are, and also hover install and have me tap to view the report or tap to view it in the list below, and it will take me to number 30 in the list below. I can also move about and choose different pages. Tap to see that property, number 150. Looks like it's working as expected. For whatever reason, I want them to take a look at number 15, view it in the list below, and so on. If I wanted to look at all of these property reports, folks, I could tap on the arrow that points back to the margin and tell the system to turn this list into a brochure or book of property reports, where I could page through it like I was reading a book if I'd like to do it that way. Or I could tap on any individual street or address and it would open up the property report. If in fact I wanted to jump ahead and create labels for all of these properties, I could tap to create labels and it would take me through the process and take me to the area where it is setting me up to do a little prospecting, if you will, but non-traditionally. I pulled a list via a simple search, and now I want to skip everything else and I want to go right to create labels. We will create labels before the day is done. And you'll remember that you can do this just from doing a search through simple search, as well as advanced and or map search. We could also have an option to export the data into a CSV file, which also can be used for Excel spreadsheets, as well as your CRM programs. Even print the list if that's easier. When we talk about reporting to us, the feedback tab is at the bottom of the screen, and the feedback tab will walk you through how you report your problem, explaining it in detail, letting us know who you are and how to get back in touch with you, and submitting that to our team where they can let you know what they found, and how they're going to correct or address or explain what you're seeing. As we go back to that search screen, I'm going to go back to the top of the screen and I'm going to go up to back to search. At this point, when I go back to search, it's going to take me back to the search screen where we began our simple search. Remember, a simple search is named a simple search because you simply use an owner name, an address, a parcel ID, or MLS number. If you're in a county, and there are lots of counties that have subdivision data, it just so happens that the counties that you selected today don't have either enough or a complete set of subdivision data. Therefore, it's not a searchable field. So our system removed that search ability, or 1 of 5, the 5th being subdivisions, was removed because it's like sending you off to look for a needle in a haystack. So we do that when possible so that you're not searching for a field that is very limited or not highly populated, or just unavailable in its entirety. Okay, so you may get into some of the Albany County and surrounding areas, and they do have a large amount of subdivision data. And I'll just tell you, it's that way across the country. Subdivisions, there may be names at the end of streets or at corners of cul-de-sacs for subdivision information that's never officially recorded. Therefore, it's something that we don't have because it's not made it through an official recording process. Remember, hover install over the question mark to be reminded on how we swapped out a starts with search to have it be a contains. Now we're going to quickly go into advanced and map search. As we tap on advanced and map search, I want you to know that both An all-in search, which is referred to as advanced search, and a map search are both advanced ways to search. They're not a simple search, so it's advanced. Both of these styles or types of searches are on one page, and you're able to choose which type of search you want to start with. You may decide you want to do both, and there's nothing wrong with that either. The first thing that we always come to and look at is, do I need to identify what counties I want the system to search in? And for this explanation, when doing a map search, the map search is not as reliant on having you tell me what counties you want me to look in. It's more reliant on the filters and more of a wide net view of the map. So let's start there. I'm looking at the map, and by hovering and stalling over the question mark, it tells me the best practice for beginning a search is to actually tap on or view larger map. And that is absolutely true. And we don't ignore the fact that there's a toolbar that you could go to the extent of panning in and or drawing if you're panned in far enough. But honestly, time is money, folks. And again, the best practice is just to go ahead and click View Larger Map, where you still have that toolbar on the far right-hand side of your map, but you're also working with and able to see the different search filters that we have access to in using a map search. Let's do a few of these. Looking over top of the map and identifying what the search filters allow me to use, referencing last sales date and hovering and stalling and seeing that I have a calendar to pick a beginning and an end. Last sales price and an option to not only drag and drop if that's easier, but I could insert a minimum and a maximum. I like personally to drag and drop. If I don't need to be as exact and I'm just looking for a range of homes that are just under $1 million and just over $1.4 million, I can go ahead and do that and have the system create what that looks like for me. Now, quite a few properties there, but understand, if you see what I see, is that I like the satisfaction of having the visual aid and having the map populate all the properties it found. I see there are 3,162 of those properties. And when I hover install on a single blue dot, it gives me that property data detail. I also point out that whether or not you're in Washington and Essex County, it works exactly the same way. I just happen to have this map spooled up. When it has a number in the center of the blue dot, it is telling you that there are a large number of properties in close enough proximity to one another that it made more sense to put them together than it was to spread them out. Okay. But by using your pan in, pan out option, you can actually break apart those clusters. All right. So if we got closer to the map, we'd start to break apart the clusters and we'd start to see more of those blue single dots where we can hover, install, and see more information about each and every one of those properties. I'm not holding back from you. I'm just giving you what is easiest for me to display based on the level in which I'm viewing that map. All right. So you're in control about how far in you want to go and how much data is displayed by changing that zoom level. All right. And then I'll follow you from there. I can go down and do some additional filtering by adding things like owner name or adding things like owner occupied. I'd like to do the owner occupied option. So I can say I'm looking for only absentee owners and it goes down to 2,516. But then I can actually say, you know what, while we're at it, give me first the ones that are out of state. Because if they're out of state, what's the likeliness that they're out of state, took a new job, just didn't have time to sell the house before they left, waiting to have some repairs done or modifications, or really make sure that the job is going to be the place they want to stay. Maybe they're waiting to move entirely until the kids go from middle school to high school, and they don't want to move them in the middle of middle school or before high school starts, whatever that may be. There's a story to be told, and one that may include you being able to sell that house for them when they're ready because they haven't picked a listing agent yet. And or if there's a renter in their house, maybe you can also sell the renter a home. And maybe the gentleman that owns the home that's an absentee owner would like to buy another home towards the Adirondacks as another investment property or a vacation home. So you could potentially open up multiple opportunities. Okay. So think about this advanced search using a map as an opportunity to get results and find buyers and find sellers for your buyers. So if you've got a list of buyers looking for properties in first-time home buyer neighborhoods, they want to move in before school starts, think outside the box, folks, at the different things you can do based on the map and the filters you use to look for them. As I scroll down, I can put in acreage. So my families don't necessarily want a farm, but they definitely want, a little bit of land. So they want anything that's big enough to call good for the children, but doesn't actually require work on the farm. So 2 acres is not bad. They don't need it, but if they were going to be looking at properties, it would be no more than 2 acres. So now I've got 152. So I've scaled down a bit. I could put year built, building square footage, beds, baths, and basements. Like I said, based on your area and the areas surrounding New York State. Again, some areas have full data, some are missing some beds, baths. It all is based on what the county has available. We don't create these numbers or these values. They come from the clerk and the assessor and lots of different resources. So we won't have you looking. We won't give you an option to refine by beds and baths if there are not beds and baths in your area based on the areas that you're looking in. Okay, so we try to refine that as well. Later, we'll talk about map layers and the fact that you're going to remember that you can add them to any map, and that I show you what those are in one instance of a map shortly. We're viewing these results now by tapping view results. It will take me to where we are familiar with what appears in front of us, because this is exactly like what we saw in the simple search and exactly why we don't have to go through it again. The only thing I'm going to tell you is that you'll see two differences based on your by default settings. When doing a search using a map, your map will be exposed without you telling it or asking for it. If you start with a map, the map is going to carry itself through your search process. You started with a map here, did a map search, and therefore your map is in front of you. All the same things are available to you in that you can hover, install, and see information just like before. The biggest difference here, folks, is this modification pane has grown. Because after all, we did a search using a map and we had so much more that we could filter using. Now, of course, we would have more to modify with. I could go back in and modify the last sales date, last sales price. We could put in a sale date. We could put in a street to further refine. We may want to go ahead and say, if I picked up commercial properties, if I picked up agricultural properties and anything in between, now's a great time to say my buyers are only looking for residential. Check that box, scroll to the bottom and say update these results. It will throw out anyone that isn't recorded as a residential property, and it brings me down to 47 properties. So just keep in mind, you're in control. You take care of this and refine as you go. Saving the results is still an option. Everything else we talked about, folks, options, being able to pan from to and from the map to the list, being able to ask for more than the first 15, being able to create labels, export data, and even check boxes to keep or remove. And then lastly, when you find a property that is also in your MLS, you'll have a clear representation of what that status is based on the legend. This is a red sold tag. This is a sold property. I now know what the sold date and sold price is. And I also have a link that opens up and leads me back to Flex MLS and the information that's provided in the report that is connected to this property. So this is the private detail report for you to look at and determine any additional details that may be helpful in this conversation. Alrighty, so you're a pro on simple searching. When I go back to search, you'll be happy to know that your map has followed along and your map now only has 47 properties on it because we continued to refine even after we left the map. We refined further by saying only show me the properties that are residential property type. So it's removed the excess and my map followed along. So if I wanted another visual aid to see where these properties are and to determine whether or not they still make the cut, it's there and ready for me to do so and even further refine. So I don't have to be done, but should I be done, I like to click start over or view the results, save the results, print the results. But nevertheless, I'm done with my map. And when I'm done with my map, I would tap start over and it would clear that map out. Now what I'm going to do is go up to the upper right-hand corner and tap on back to advanced search, which will in fact take me back to advanced search where you and I started when we talked about other ways beyond a simple search that you can find properties. Now, in this instance, I like the down arrows. You will too. As you get to know the system, you'll get to know the fact that our down arrows save us from having too much on the page, chasing after information that we've already looked at or don't need. Anytime you tap on the down arrow, it will in fact collapse the information, allowing you to just look at what your needs, what those needs are, and even being able to collapse reports to remove sections of data that you don't feel are necessary to share with a consumer. You want to just remove it for yourself or for them. The buttons across the top of the screen say saved criteria or saved results. I don't want to ignore those. I like to explain what those are. So if Bob the Builder or Joe the Investor or maybe it's Nancy the repeat buyer comes to you once a month or once a quarter or twice a year to ask you for specific properties and if they're on the market and or available. Maybe it's someone looking for vacant land so they could do planned unit developments or multifamily projects. Either way, you can create and save your own criteria. By doing that, you're saving yourself time and effort when Bob the Builder or Joe the Investor calls you to say, are there any newly developed and ready to go multifamily tracts of land up to 10 acres zoned appropriately available? And you've done all the criteria, so you don't have to do that again. You can open up his saved criteria and then go ahead and rerun the search. You can also save the results in advance of him calling you and have it ready for him because you know that's like clockwork. Keep that in mind as well. Now I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to give you a few tips without taking a lot of time here. Folks, when I say advanced search and it's the last one out of 3, it's everything I've got. And it is based on the counties you want me to search in. So if we go in and we put in, let's go ahead and let's go Washington. Let's go Essex. Let's go Warren. And let's go Saratoga. Okay. What it's going to do is if any of those areas don't have beds and baths, it would remove those from our search criteria. Okay. So this may have changed a little bit as far as what you can search for or using if there is a certain percentage of properties that don't have that level of data. Okay. So in this instance, it's telling me, and it clearly there are no subdivisions. There normally be school zones and subdivisions. Okay. I don't know which of the counties made that drop off, but having those four together, one or more of them doesn't have a level of subdivision data that makes me feel comfortable having you search for that needle in a haystack. There's not enough of it to have you searching for it. So this is how it creates the search. Now, as far as schools are concerned, you start tapping and the system starts relying on your taps to give you a list of what I find that starts with WA, the same way we did in a simple search. You definitely don't want to just leave WA and not choose from the list, because then my system's going to use the letters WA to look for properties. And this is going to be one of the filters. If the property isn't in a school zone name that starts, not even that starts with, the school zone name is WA. Okay. If you want to use something from my list, you have to choose it. And you can choose several without a problem, but just by keeping a WA, even if your intention was to grab Waterford, it's going to look for just WA. It doesn't know what you're looking for, so it's going to come back and say we can't find anything. All right, so I've done that. Funny story, I've done it in a class and been like, why am I getting 0 results? Why am I getting that big ugly red bar that says no properties found? And it was all because I was showing people how to choose from the list, and I wasn't choosing from the list. I was talking about making sure you did, and then I didn't. And I just left an LA inside of the school zone name or the subdivision name, which it couldn't do anything. It was giving me nothing at all. So remember that. If you want to know information about what each of these containers is looking for, hover install over the question mark. Tap the down arrow to minimize if you don't want to see a section. And remember, less is more. I don't need to know everything, I just need to know enough to find the properties you're looking for. So I know I want to exclude multiple parcel sales. I know that I want residential property types. I know that I need at least 2 bedrooms and I need at least 1 bathroom. And I need these homes to be at least 1,000 square feet, but I really would prefer no more than 2,500. If I wanted basements or I was just looking for vacant land, I would remove all that and just do the simple button. If I wanted to take into account owner occupied or absentee, in state, out of state, I would start to do a little bit more work here. But since I don't want to, I'm not going to do anything. And if I wanted them to be in my MLS and only in my MLS, I would tell the system what status they needed to hold. Was it active, or is it active and pending, active, pending, expired, and withdrawn? And I may get nothing, but let's try it both ways. I want actives, I want pendings, I want expireds and withdrawn, because to me, all of those could be opportunities. Then I go up anywhere on the screen, and it doesn't matter where. Notice the submit button follows me. I can tap it anywhere, and it's going to consolidate what I'm looking for and find properties based on my direction. Now, I might get a big red bar that says, no, Nikki, I don't find anything. And that's just the way it is. It is running a little slow, and that's probably all me. Well, nope, it's not all me. It found more than 5,000 properties for those 5 or 4 counties. With the information I put in, it found more than 5,000 properties. And I didn't even ask that first. You folks know that you gave me the counties. I came in here dark. I came in here with just what I'd been looking at or using previously. I knew nothing. Now I've got 5,000 properties. All right, so let's break this down just a little bit. We don't have to do a lot here because we already know what we're looking at. We know we can hover install. Easy. We know that when we hover install and the property is in the MLS, it's going to tell us that. It's going to tell us the status. It's going to tell us the address, the owner, the parcel, the county, last sales date and price, and transfer date and price. It's going to let me look at my own full report. It's also going to let me view it in the list below if that's what I want to do, and it will zoom me right down to the list. It also is giving me all those properties in the list so I can hover install, and these are all links back to FBS. So expired, pending, for sale, right? Everything's here. There's more than 334 pages with more than 5,500 or 5,000 plus properties, okay? It's pretty cool, right? You can click on the property to see it. I can tell the system I want to see more. And notice every single one of these properties that we're looking at indeed has an MLS icon because we said that we needed to only look for the ones that are in my MLS. Now, let me do one other thing. I could save these if I wanted. I could also go back to search, and I'm going to show you what changes when we don't check anything. When we don't check anything, it's going to give me all properties. Now, if I got more than 5,000 that have been inside of your MLS, go team, right? You guys are working hard is what you're doing. I am absolutely like speechless. And to say that doesn't happen with me. We searched in 4 counties only and got more than 5,000 properties that were at some level in your MLS. I didn't even choose sold. All I chose was active, pending, expired, and withdrawn. Now I'm going to choose nothing this time. God only knows what in the world I'm going to get back this time. Comes back, it still says 5,000 plus. We knew that would be, but that's 5,000 plus, and we already had more than 5,000 that were in the MLS. Now we've got all the other properties that weren't in your MLS. These were in your MLS. We can go through and say, show me 30, and it's going to give me 30, and I'm going to go on from there. So now I've got properties that are in my MLS as well as properties that have never seen the inside of the MLS. And if they have, it's been so long ago that it predates Flex and everything else, right? So lots and lots of properties, folks, lots and lots of properties in here that are in your MLS and also are not in your MLS under the categories we looked at, okay? Now I'm going to go back just one more time and remind you that you guys are very, very skilled in what you're doing, and that by going through these different search scenarios, you have absolutely been able to accomplish the baseline for learning. So if you're brand new, you got everything you need to know. If you are just coming back to find out new things, I hope that you've seen new things, and we're not done. We've still got a bit of time left. It's quarter after the hour, and we have about 30 minutes, which is plenty of time. But let me just tap on one of the subject properties in this search. Because I've been working so actively inside and around the Albany-ish area, I didn't actually pull up many properties in your area. And I was just trying to go in and see if we could find a couple of properties in your area, take a look at and find a property report, which again, doesn't really matter what we do here, but I really wanted a residential property. I didn't want a duplex, that kind of stuff. And I'm not going to spend a lot of your time looking for one of those, but maybe we can find something quickly that gives us, this one works for me, right? We have got a traditional old residential property that is a single family. If I wanted to find something like this and save the report, it would save it back to my home screen so that you can see that. And what we're going to do is we're going to just look a little bit with this, okay? Now, I didn't actually prep and pull one of your properties. I just wanted to grab one while we're here. And with the property report, you're able to, again, save properties back to your home screen. So there's that Glen Falls, right? I looked at it and then I saved the property. I looked at a couple on waterfront. If I look at them, then they're actually in my system and I can take a look at them and walk through them and look at the property report. Okay. Some simple things that we want to talk about where that's concerned. When looking at a property report, you're always going to have some very, very specific items on the property report if in fact it has been in the MLS. Okay. So I'm just going to kind of twist around here a little bit. Only because I want to show you all the fields and all the filters. You're looking at property reports, it's going to bring down and borrow the photos that come from Flex. Okay. So when you open up a property report in your areas, you guys have got lots of coverage. When you pull a property report up that is currently in your MLS or has been in your MLS, you'll see the button in the far right-hand corner saying view MLS information. You'll be able to email and save to PDF in original, condensed, and in Spanish. You'll be able to save the report as previously, and those photos can be expanded to use up the entire top section of the property report. Okay. Not only that, it is good to also know that if it's in the MLS, you'll also have the icons we've been talking about all day. All right. If you come to a property report that has a large map and no photos, but still has a link to view MLS information, you're going to go to the bottom of the screen and tap feedback and tell me that the photos are in Flex, but they're missing from CRS data. And you want to know why, because it's an active property or it's a property that's sold. And we will make sure that those photos are pulled down. We're not perfect, but we kind of are relying on you. If you come across one, we do spot checking, but if you find one, tell us about it. Okay. So by design, if there's no MLS button and there's no status, then there won't be a picture or a photo. We don't pull photos down from Google. We don't pull them down from the clerk or the assessor or just try to look for a picture or go out there and take one on our own. We are using the photos that have been taken and published along with the listing. Okay. So if it's not in the MLS, there won't be a photo. Other things from this property report, like I said, the reason why I'm using one that I'd used previously is I have some specific things set up on this report just to make sure that I can show you all things that are typical for a property report. So forgive the fact that I didn't go into Washington or Essex. I'll make it up to you when I come out there and do it live and in person, I promise. But as we're looking at this, you could upload a custom image. And in just a few minutes, we're going to view a larger map. But before we do, I'm going to show you how you can be led through the property report by clicking the Help tab. The Help tab gives you a property report overview. And a lot of what I just said is here, pointing out what you're looking at and what's available to you, letting you know how you can save or print move about reports should you be looking at multiples, and even save the report back to your front property search page. Again, reiterating that viewing the MLS logging on and giving you information on the property you're viewing. Or in some cases, it may lead you to a login page where you have to log in and or accept terms. And the other opens the door for you. And those are determined based on how far in the vendor. So the GIS, how far in will they let us take you? How far in will the assessor allow us to take you before they want to know that you know what they expect of you while working within their site? Okay. So those are the different links. You'll also always find an icon if the property's been in your MLS. General parcel information, again, giving you the county assessor report. Additional data you'll find, mortgage history, as well as links to mortgage and trust details. This is information that we are providing. Again, giving you access to viewing those additional mortgage and trust details. When and if you come to a county that allows us to take you to the deed, you may find that you stumble upon a book page or document that is an actual link. Not often, because more often lately they are giving us book page and document, and less times now we're seeing that they'll let us pull up and display that document to you. Therefore, that's why we allow you to view the mortgage and trust details after we've keyed in those details for instances where they won't let us take you directly to the report. You can customize a report. Remember, we talked about those down arrows. We talked about being able to hide sections. Remember, hiding the sections by tapping down creates an environment that hides the section and turns this into a text that is looking like it is almost unavailable. And what that does is then on demand, you can open that section versus tapping the down arrow to hide it. We also have an opportunity to minimize. So every time we go into a property and update sales history, we also update the date that's next to the sales history. Then we've got lots and lots of sales history that may or may not be a benefit to you or beneficial to share with your consumer, your buyer. We offer that minus sign so that you can minimize and then only share as much data as you'd like to share with your consumer. So tap the down arrow to hide it all, tap the minus key to minimize and see less of the data. Sales history, once again, will also show you and or even give you different interpretations of what you see. So if you tap on minus, it's only going to give you the most recent, and notice it's giving you the block text or bold text saying that this is the most recent mortgage and the active mortgage at that. Scrolling down, I tapped on it and let you know that you could upload a custom image, and in just a few minutes, we're going to actually view the larger map. And when we view the larger map, you're going to see all the additional map layers that are available to you. Remember, in just a second, I'll flip back to the actual live property report where I'll further show you how the property report is just the first of 4 tabs that are available for you on every single property, giving you access to the property report, giving you access to complete a CMA, giving you access to do prospecting, as well as look at facts and figures. So remember that help tab does in fact do a lot of what I'm doing today, but you'll have access to it later. And I know they're recording this. Recording is great as well, but having the tool inside of the system means that while you're working, you can have the system giving you tips and tricks. It's almost like your, personal assistant sitting on your shoulder, if you will. Okay. So looking back at the property report, all those items that we just talked about are here. I want to point out that current owner on my report is grayed out, and you didn't see me tap anything. Let me show you why. In the settings tab, I decided, especially if I'm going out looking for current owners that happen to be out of state and absentee, that I would rather not see the owner's information and fear of sharing that too soon. And it may be hindering the sales process if I turn up on somebody that oh my gosh, the person that owns the house I went to school with. Let me give them a call and see if we can renegotiate some sort of commission. There's always some conversation that we may want to decide when it happens and how it happens and who's a part of it. Okay. So if I tap on property report and I feel that strongly, and I did, I unchecked the owner section. So what this does is select which sections you want to appear on the report. Well, by default, I check them all for you. If you don't want one of these, go to your settings tab and uncheck it and then save that. Now, from here moving forward, all my property reports will not have the owner name. It will ask me or give me an option to on demand request it. Okay. I'm going to uncheck listing archive while we're at it and tap save. When I do and go back to previous page, you'll notice that owner information is grayed out still, and every single property report we opened will have no owner information unless I tap to open, just like the tutorial showed us. Okay. The other thing that it didn't point out for us that I'd like to point out for you is that the FEMA flood zone and go directly to the firm panel ID. Look for these types of links. Anytime I can add them, I will, and give you more of the same information. When I tap that, it opens up the FEMA flood zone. It also opens up any changes to the firm, giving me access to a PDF of revisions, amendments, and revalidations if there are any within this zone. Okay. So do in fact keep that in mind as well. Notice that the listing archive is also grayed out. If I tap to open that, it will give me all the times this property has been in and off of the market, giving me the MLS icon and giving me a link to look at that and all the information that goes along with it. Folks, that is what we're looking at when it comes to a property report inside of CRS data. Now we're going to quickly go to view larger map. When we open up view larger map, it does in fact let me view larger map. If I tap on the help tab assists me and breaks down the maps and layers. Don't forget to let this be your guide when you take what you learned today and apply it to what you're doing. Opening up layers based on what you'd like to see. Opening up and measuring parcels per your opportunity here, turning them on and off, and just using this as a guide. I'm going to give you a few tips and tricks, but now at least you know that when you go back to doing this, if you forget what you're looking at, what you're looking for, that tool will help you. Panning in and out, we talked about that. The gear will allow you to change your views. And let's not forget that you in your area of the country like to see assessor maps. We call those tax maps. A lot of people kind of swap those terms back and forth. This will give you access to the tax maps or assessor maps and are viewable based on the type of viewer you have available to you. So they're maps that work with your viewer based on your machine. The icon that lets you center into the screen, even your magnifying glass that allows you to draw and see more of the same information, but closer to and more deep in. An option to measure parcels, lat, long, distance, and area. Tap parcel and measure. Tap and tell the system you want to measure a parcel. Tap on the parcel. It gives you lot dimensions and acreage. If you want to measure a distance, do the same thing. Start, get to where you're going. When you're there, double click to see where we're at in regards to that. Okay. When you do any of these items, drawing on the map, you hover, you stall, you can delete. You hover, you stall, you can delete. If you hover over top and left click, it will give you a chance to see more important information in regards to the parcel you're looking at, who owns it, what the acreage is, if there was a sale, when was the sale, how much did it sell for, etc. You can move about your map and do the same thing throughout the map. wherever you go. Okay. Moving back over the map, I can also go in and start to, if I wanted to draw on the map, to, like I said, identify large areas, include that selection, and know that I found 111 results where I can take and go directly to search results or skill with that already. It looks just like doing an advance or a map or a simple search, or go directly to prospecting and open up and start the prospecting activities. It's all very easy to access. Hover install to move your shape or tap to delete it. Move all the way over to the left-hand side and tap on the two arrows that point to the center and open up an opportunity to layer on things like recent sales in the last 60 months. Listings, ask the system to show you those active and sold, pending and expired. And know as you move the map, it'll continue to do the properties. Along with the legend, you know what the recent sales ranges are. Anything that's purple sold for more than $400,000. Anything that has a listing icon that's red is sold, and I left click on that. And I know by looking at this property that it's sold, but I also know it sold more than 60 months ago because I asked it to shade if it was in the last 60 months. I asked them to show me the properties that sold through my MLS and to shade the ones that sold in the last 60 months. Okay. Not only that, but if they're shaded, they may not have sold through my MLS. They may have sold through a neighboring MLS. They may have sold through a for sale by owner. Those are all transfers of ownership or recent sales. Those that sold through my MLS would have, in the last 60 months, would have shading and also would have an icon and a link back to the MLS report and a link back to my report. So take a chance at playing with these layers. Know that if you turn on the layer and it looks grayed out, you need to pan in just a bit to initiate the correct zoom level to allow me to put deeded acreage across the map, or even calculate the acreage if you'd rather me do it that way. All in an effort to create information for your client to very simply see. And if FEMA doesn't come up and you've turned it on, the best way, if you're worried about whether or not it's on, is to pan out a bit. Take a little trip and be a little bit further away from the map, still seeing with the teardrop where your subject property is. And as the different layers come up, you'll also see that there are FEMA flood zones. They'll come up further away if they are around, but they're further away from your subject property. Okay. Best way to do it and to understand, again, if you're turning on FEMA flood zones, the legend will be up and the layer will be there. And sometimes you have to pan out and move around to maybe satisfy your need to see it to make sure it's nowhere near your subject property. All right. Now, I do, in fact, like to clean my map before I go out. So I would go in and I these to clear my map so that the next time I come in here, I can ask for what I need in that particular instance of working with the map. Remember, we went from the property report to the view larger map. We also talked about the facts and figures still associated with the subject property and not going away from the subject property. And now that we've made it to comparables, let's take a few minutes. In the next, we've got about 10 minutes, 10 or 12 minutes left. Let's look at comparables. And I'm going to do a lot of reminding you that the best way to learn to do a CMA is to do it with a property you need to do a CMA on. So I'm going to simply show you that there are two different types of CMAs. There's a quick CMA, and using a quick CMA is going to do just what it sounds like. It's going to give you a quick way to look for properties that are, and you can kind of take note of this, the same property type. It will let you insert the improvement type and land use. It's going to look for properties that are plus or minus 1 for beds and baths. By default, it's going to look for properties that are plus or minus 20% for acreage and square footage by default. And it's going to use a distance of just under 1 mile by default and sales in the last 12 months by default. Each of these parameters can be modified by tapping the down arrow and selecting what works better for you. In a rural area, which I suspect is better for you, you may want to go out 2 miles. And you may want to go out 18 months instead of 12. At that point, you can click submit and the system will go out and look for more of the same. Everything else, folks, on this screen are things that you've learned hovering and stalling, seeing photos, and having links to and from the MLS, even using the map and being able to draw on the map to reduce your comparables or go down to the bottom of the list of comparables and check boxes to keep or check boxes to remove. Knowing that it's sold through your MLS is as easy as looking for a sold icon. And knowing that in this instance, number 5 and number 1 sold, and they make the cut as far as those parameters, but they didn't sell through your MLS. That's a big difference between us, the other guys, and CRS data. We've got our hands in and have the data available through the tax records so we can show you properties that sold that should be considered, not just properties that sold through your MLS that should be considered, but all properties. Making sure you're ready to answer that question when you sit down with the seller and they ask you why you came up with what you came up with to list the property. You can let them know that this is taking into account all transfers of ownership and removing those that aren't making the cut based on size, style, year built, etc., but not based on what MLS they sold through. Remember, you can also drag and drop columns in this instance, and don't be afraid to tap that Help tab when you need to know more about the CMA. Home improvement adjustments here are very, very simple, and I happen to add a deck addition. I tap the down arrow to choose based on what my client said they did during COVID. They added a great big deck so that we could still have family parties and still maintain a safe distance. I didn't use track, but I definitely used a great design and wood. So I'd call it a mid-grade improvement quality. Looks great, just not the highest end of material. Trek's quite expensive, but I did put about $12,300 into that improvement. And my system will allow you to submit and determine what the return of investment looks to be like by using a cost versus value, a report provided to us by Zonda Cost versus Value. If you want to know more about that, click on the link, cost versus value. When I submit that improvement, it takes that number and adds it to the average cost per square foot. So now not only do I have an average cost per square foot price, I have not applicable with house price index. If there's not one, there's just not one. I also have the average sales price divided by the tax appraisal ratio, as well as the home improvement of value, which is that $12,300, $7,917 added to the average cost per square foot to give me the home improvement value. I can, as always, remove anything from this report that I think is not applicable based on what I'm doing. And then I can simply print the screen, email, save to PDF, or print based on what I don't or what I remain unhidden. So tap down arrows if I want to remove certain graphs, or if I think that only a certain amount of information is beneficial to my client, and then I can check boxes to remove and or keep, and then send this off and share it with my client. Remember, don't forget that Help tab. It is going to be helpful. Now, if you want a full version of a CMA, you want one with all the bells and whistles, make it look like not only do you have a real estate license, but you also have your hand in design and possibly into coding, which would allow you to give them a CMA with all of the bells and whistles, which gives you everything that you got in the quick CMA, but it gives you more of that, cherry on top impression of lots of time taken to give you all the details and the information one is looking for. Everything that we just talked about is here. It's just presented in a different way. There's your property value adjustment where we added the deck and X's to remove what you don't want to see, as well as an added benefit where you can say, I looked at the data and I'd like to suggest a property value or a spot where we're going to start listing this home. I can pan across and look at each individual property. I still know which properties sold through my MLS and which ones didn't. This bonus is I can see my property, I can see the property to the right that is, I can tell right away. Green arrow point up, it's larger. Red arrow pointing down, it's smaller. 3 vertical dots give me a chance to remove and reassess, and the system does all that for me. I also know how far from the subject property is where any one of the comparables sits. So little over 4 miles away, I can drag and drop to change the distance to further reduce. Now I've got 7 comparables instead of more than 50, maybe a more manageable number. Nevertheless, I can still go in and increase the distance, the characteristics it's looking at or using. Remember, it's populating those defaults that we already talked about, plus or minus 1 beds and baths, plus or minus 20% building square footage and acreage. Sales in the last 12 or 18 months based on what you're telling the system to do, or if you made changes to that. Being able to add an actual building square footage range, being able to take it from the default to something different that you would know all about because you are familiar with your area. Remember, a CMA is just a CMA until a real estate professional gets their hands on it. It's your molding of the clay that makes this work. Remember, all the filters are across the top in the small buttons. As you open those drawers and take a look, you can add extra features, which is a bonus here. Exterior wall, year built, and number of stories. Extra features and exterior walls, along with land use improvement types, these are all based on the county that you're looking in and what's available. In Canada, the only extra feature is a garage. It's you have a house with or without a garage, there's no other extra features. In some counties, there are no extra features that are recorded. So remember, we're diving in and giving you access to what's available through your assessor, clerk, county office, okay? When you're ready, you can even take a look at the 3 different view types on the far right, which take you through a map view as well as a list view. Same information, just a different way to spool it up and look at it. Keep in mind, when you're ready to create the report will be created and it'll stick around for 6 months. You can view it and edit it, insert your branding and your headshot, put in a message, as well as email it, download it. It doesn't expire for 6 months, so I'm saving it for you. You don't have to be fearful that you'll lose it. And if you want to know more about working with CMAs, tap on that help tab. This will take you through your first shot at doing a CRS CMA if you've never used it before. From start to finish, more than 9 articles available to you about comparables. Now, as we are quick to finish today, then we'll review any questions that are in chat. Remember, we didn't move away from that property report while we were doing all the things we just did. When we were looking at a property in Glen Falls, if I wanted to tell everybody that I just sold this, I could tap on the prospecting button across the top of the screen. It's like I'm standing in the front yard of that property. Then I could go in and draw around it. I want to let everybody know that I moved into this area. It's a nice big neighborhood and I'm new to the area and it's in Warren County, so it's got Warren County populated, and I want to include all the properties in and around my neighborhood. There are 211 people in this area. I could draw additional shapes. I could even decide that I added some in here that I didn't mean to add because they go into another neighborhood and exclude those. I could add a small group that aren't really in the neighborhood, but are built by the same builder and are also considered kind of a subset of the neighborhood and include that. So I could draw multiple shapes to build out the number of properties. There are 207. If I wanted to go back to the left, I could do some more filtering by using an owner name, an address, a municipality, or a listing agent name. I could also go in and use boundaries like zip codes, census block and tract. I could use school zones. And notice as I hover over top of these individual filters and criteria, it explains to me what that would do for my search. I could remove or limit search to specific MLS statuses like active or sold. I could refine and look for or reach out to or prospect using only an absentee out of state owner, or make sure I'm only talking to those that are occupying the property. Maybe my deal is I'm in a first time home buyer neighborhood and I want to talk to or reach out to those people and be gentle about it. Like say that I'm looking for ownership duration that exceeds 15 years. So that possibly I'm reaching out to those that have raised families in this first time buyer neighborhood and love it, but it might be nice for them to look at something that is a more quiet neighborhood, something that provides additional amenities, because you've got buyers that are looking to raise their families in these first-time home buyer neighborhoods. Not that there's a restriction of who buys, but more so that the amenities and the schools are really important, and that's why you've got so many people wanting to move to that area. Total assessed value, property types. We can limit this and say we just want residential because I can, by looking at it, see that we probably have some properties other than residential. We can refine with more than one. We can remove recent sales. So I don't want to talk with anybody that sold in the last 18 months because it's a waste of my marketing. Last sales date, last sales price, mortgage age, similar to ownership duration. You can at least tell whether or not they refinanced and there's a new mortgage. Maybe they refinanced and they've been there 30 years, but their mortgage is 19 because at some point it was refinanced. Improvement types, size of house, acreage, vacant land, and year built, you get it, right? It's all here. From there, the last thing I'm going to tell you by creating the labels and exporting the data, we did prospecting from our subject property. Although, if you want to prospect, you're brand new and you want to do a wide net prospecting, you would tap on prospecting from the home page, and then you get to look at the entire map and you get to select the county or counties and select your boundaries and filters and use the map. So you can always use both, no matter what direction you take, but this gives you more of a wide net approach. So it's just, what would you rather do? Which one works for you? And how do you want to make that happen? Again, as we go through this, no matter what it is that you want to do, let's say you want to go in and see the boundaries and see the zip codes across this area. I can go in and start tapping and gaining access to addresses just by selecting a few of these zip codes. And as I do and scroll down, it's also checking them on a list. And for somebody that doesn't know the area, it would be quite nice to be able to quickly do that. And then I could take that more than 5,500 properties and refine further by saying, I only want residential and then it's going to decrease the number. If I want to reduce it by owner type, and I want to say, let's go absentee out of state owner and update it. It's taking it from more than 5,500 down to 689, showing me those on the map and developing the list. So you know the drill. I can go from the map to the list. I can start in the refine or filter category and then further filter or refine after using my criteria and draw on the map to further refine. I can check boxes to remove by page or by individual section or address, knowing which ones went through the MLS and knowing that I could go in and exclude individual types, like remove all active listings, so that I'm not sending them to people that haven't listed. Export the data into a CSV file. Even edit those fields. Remember, hover install over question marks. Export is simple. Creating the labels is equally as simple. It's going to automatically skip records with no zip, remove exact duplicates. You decide what address is used and how it's displayed, deciding whether or not to include a current resident or replace the name with current resident, or even put in some sort of custom text. Then what Avery label type, and then what label you want to start printing on. A choice between a PDF and a Word, you're going to make it. And then finally, creating those labels, super simple, with a single click that opens those labels up and allows you to just review, modify, and or take a shot at determining how many of these you're going to print and what you want to save. Remembering that all of that and prospecting is super simple, and with support documents like tapping on help, 3 minutes, 45 seconds will be a repeat, a very condensed repeat of what Nikki Morgan just gave you on her prospecting overview. Folks, I told you it's hard to do it in an hour and 45 minutes. We did slightly go over, but as I'm going to just tap on chat and make sure that looks like we've got a couple of people joined throughout, a couple of people exited. Let's see if we've got, which understandably, if it was quite long, so Glenn and Tina gave me a couple of tricks as far as what we should name that button. So thank you for that. If there are any additional questions or concerns, please put those in the chat. Or if you feel comfortable, feel free to unmute yourself to do so. I believe that everybody should have the option to unmute on their own. Otherwise, I'll stick around for a couple of minutes. Does anybody have any questions? All righty. Well, I don't see any questions at this point. Again, thank you very much for joining me today. I appreciate that. Oh, looks like I did have one come in as we were talking. Thank you very much. I'm glad that we were able to get this done and that it was informative. I hope you learned something new today, and I look forward to seeing you when I'm out there live and in person. Just do me a favor. Make sure that there is snow because I want it, but that I can land safely and exit safely. But in between that, I'll do snow angels in the front yard of your office any day. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nikki.
You're welcome. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Nikki.
Thank you. Have a great day.